Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for this amazing session. Well, this is going to be amazing because both my demos are going to work, well, not at the same time, but one after the other. They're going to work, and they worked yesterday, so they should work today. May have just broken them, and it is Friday. We all know what happens on Friday is you do not do production deployments, or that happens, right? Anyway, thank you all for joining us. We hope you've been enjoying Black Hat Asia. If you've been attending that, some great sessions. Liren's talk yesterday on supply chain, which I'm going to talk a little bit about today, but we'll get into that when we go through the prezo. I'll just give it a few more moments for a few more folks to join. If you can hear me, please, in the chat section, drop in your favorite programming languages. I kind of don't really have favorites. Well, I do, but right tool, right job. Anyway, in the chat section, if you want to drop in to say hi, say where you're from, please do. If I'm going to tell you a developer joke, spoilers, straight after this slide. So if you are there and you feel that you're face palming, please put that in the chat, just because I like to see that go in there. But anyway, if you don't, that's fine too. I hope you learned something, and I hope we can geek out together, because that's one of my favorite things. But I'm getting into the prezo now, so I'm not going to do that. Anyway, it's amazing that you all joined us. I will give it like 30 more seconds. If you are joining, please join now. But of course, you won't hear that because you haven't joined yet. So that's a chicken and egg scenario. Anyway, that wasn't the joke. I'm just saying that wasn't the joke. All right, we should probably get underway. Let me just switch my screens around. There we go. Okay, cool. If you do have any questions, comments, emojis, all the things, please put them into the chat section while we're going. More than happy to geek out afterwards. For those that don't know me, hello, I'm Developer Steve. I'll have a slide that I get to in a sec that goes into that a little bit more as we're talking. But yeah, thank you for joining us for Stranger Danger, finding the vulnerabilities before they find you. See, I shortened it so I didn't have to make the text really small. And plus, we all know what vulns is. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. Like I said, I do have a bit of a developer joke for you. Now, disclaimer, I have a whole bunch of these, so this is just one of them. If no one puts anything into the chat, I'm totally going to tell you more. No, I wouldn't do that to you. Plus, we have a whole lot of fun stuff to get through today. But why did the vulnerability get tired? See, I used to like doing this IRL in the time before, because people would respond and then you'd see the face palms. But anyway, because it ransomware. Get it, ransomware? Anyway, I can feel the face palms from here. But yeah, thank you all for joining this session. For those that don't know me, hello, my name is Developer Steve. That is actually my name legally. Funny story, well, quick story. I got married a few years ago and me and my wife decided to make a whole new last name. So we combined Cooper plus Houchin to make Coochin. And while my name was legally getting changed, I thought, you know what? I've been doing developer advocacy and working with community groups and people, developer people, or just people really, all over the world for so long now. Everyone knows me as that, so I'll make it my middle name. And actually, I was half curious to see if I could get away with it, and it turns out I can. So my middle name is actually Developer Steve. Anyway. Like I said, I've been doing advocacy and developing for a number of years now. I've actually been developing since the age of 8. So for anyone watching that's remembers the language, I taught myself QBasic back in an Atari 800 XL. It was some time ago now. I can run that on my phone now. It's kind of cool. But yeah, I've been developing for a number of years now, and been doing advocacy or evangelism with a whole bunch of different companies. Which is amazing, because as a developer myself, I get to geek out with people and learn stuff and share what I know, and ultimately just get to geek out, which is amazing. So get to 3D print things and find vulnerabilities in code and build stuff out. This one time, not going to talk about this one today, but this one time I actually put 300 LEDs in my coffee table. Actually, it was the same code that I put in my wedding cake, but again, I digress. So yeah, I have been developing since the age of 8, and for me personally, developing code and building out applications has always been a passion, because it helps people, well, just in everyday life. You can build out whole amazing experiences with as little code as what you can see now. you think some of the npm libraries that you can get now, like you need very small amount of code to be able to build out some really or changes people's lives, their day-to-day lives in whole new ways. It creates like whole streamlined experiences, which is really cool. The thing I've sort of noticed, the trend that I've noticed since I've started learning to code and to build stuff out is, well, back when I first started, there was no libraries, or there wasn't very many libraries. There wasn't these amazing communities to be able to build out and just like share knowledge and be able to build out these amazing dependencies, these amazing libraries to be able to build out extra functionality. And it's that reiterative process of like refining, adding, building, like creating and building out these amazing apps, and then the underlying stack underneath. So if you think of an iceberg, it's literally just the tip of the iceberg when your apps is surfaced onto the public internet. Of course, and we've all been here before, is when you sometimes Google those, those, I'm going to say bugs, but I kind of mean undocumented features. And you might happen across something on Stack Overflow. Sometimes you grab some code that you're not exactly sure what it's doing. And I've been here, like you copy paste something in, and then you're like, I wonder what that's actually doing. What is that installed? I don't actually know what that does. And then you kind of pull it apart and work out what it's doing. And then you kind of figure it out from that, like so many times, more times than I can remember. But what's the security fallout from that? Like, what is that doing? What is that installing? What dependencies is that installing? So this is what we're going to look at today, is like and I've got two examples of this actually. Hopefully they work. They'll work. It'll be fine. But yeah, that's the thing that I've always pondered, is like, what is this actually doing to, my server infrastructure if I'm running my own servers, or if I'm deploying to a containerized environment? Like, what is this doing to the wider environment? And that's something that we've noticed at Snyk with the really rich sort of database of vulnerabilities that we have, is that, well, as we were just talking about, like up to 90% of open source makes up today's code, but also 80% of the vulnerabilities found are either direct or in actual dependencies to that code. And I have a prime example of that today, but also we've got a couple of other ones to talk through too. And that's the risk we take, though, like building these experiences out, is you're building them to try and facilitate that seamless experience, like making the user's life easier, pushing that one button or interacting with that thing, ordering the car, ordering the food, like whatever it is. But at the same time, you're surfacing potential like vulnerabilities to the open internet, to the open world. And we know that there's groups, there's people watching for those holes, those doors, if you will, to let them through the actual stack, let them through the iceberg even. And actually today, this code snippet's from an npm library called Marked, and I'm actually going to demonstrate one of the vulnerabilities inside that as part of my demo. But yeah, like I said, that's the risk we don't know. And actually, I do have a demo of this too, but not with npm. I'm going to use PHP. Because I like to live dangerously and mix things up with two different languages in the one demo. But yeah, sometimes you don't know what doors are being opened when you install that framework, when you install that one package that has 3, 4, 15 other dependencies. It's usually not 15, but when it installs those extra dependencies, you don't know what it's actually doing. And of course, the open source world is always coming up with new packages. So, and quite often you'll see like the one main package split off into 2 or 3, because sometimes the code dependency gets too big, so it splits off into smaller ones. Maybe the main package splits off, and like we see the growth in new packages being created in open source communities. Just going to take a moment there too, because having worked with and contributed to a lot of different projects, please make sure you contribute back. It's something I always say and I'm always so passionate about, because these communities do such amazing work. Like even just reviewing upcoming releases, testing stuff before they go live, release candidates, etc., or even just reading documentation and leaving extra notes to help other developers be able to install stuff. Like so many ways you can get involved. Wanted to call out. If you're a maintainer, please reach out. I would love to chat. And as these communities grow, though, this is where the vulnerabilities start to surface, because there's all whole new ways of being created for doors to be opened, for to let people in. Like there's these new gateways being opened, which in turn can actually install other gateways. It's what we're starting to notice as the open source supply chain security problem. So, and Liren did an amazing talk yesterday at Black Hat Asia, which is on demand for those that are there. But if not, check out our YouTube, because there should be some other videos there on it as well. But yeah, he did a really good talk yesterday on some of the issues that are arising. Well, with one of my other favorites, IoT things, like new doors that get opened in that whole world, not only on the server side, but then also on the firmware device side. But I'm not going to go on that one today. But the issue here too is, and this does get a bit meta. Oh, I do love doing it at the moment. Yeah, this does get a bit meta, because one dependency in itself may have other dependencies that it pulls into, which lets in potentially other dependencies. Usually they don't go that far down as far as the depths go, but still, you know what I'm saying. Once you open that door and let something through, like, you don't know what's coming through with it. And a really good example of this is one of my favorite stories, is in 2018, this NPM ecosystem, sorry, the NPM ecosystem saw this happen with Event Stream, which basically did just that. It was a dependency with a main, or attached to main libraries or main frameworks. And so once an updated version went out to those top level stuff, it started to open the door and let in event stream, which no one was scanning for, or very few were scanning for, very few were detecting. And so event stream was downloaded over millions of times in 1 week alone, which you could imagine what that starts to let into not only that amazing application, but to the infrastructure that application runs on, which may not necessarily even just affect that one application. As a developer that sort of from digital agency days, like, I've seen this with the likes of, well, I'm going to mention it, WordPress sites, where like one site gets infected on shared hosting, and then that lets in, well, that lets it into all the shared instances, depending on how the server's set up, for example. But that wasn't the only instance of that particular story. Like, in 2020, we saw the same thing again with Electron Native Notify. This one was actually stealing cryptocurrency, again with the Doge, using the Komodo Agma wallet. And yeah, again, like, we're seeing this same issue with these open source dependencies and libraries start to surface. And so at Snyk, we work closely with a whole bunch of different communities to try and identify this before it starts to spread through, well, through infrastructure, through applications, using Snyk Advisor, which is really cool. And I'm going to show you some of the stuff. Well, as I do the demos today, I'll step through what that looks like and how that can help. But this is where, like, doing the due diligence to what you're installing, what you're using, what you're updating, and what's being added to your infrastructure, to your code, to your app before you start using it is really handy, because you can identify potential issues and possible fixes, or even versions that you should be avoiding, versions that you should be using. So understanding the dependency trees is pretty complicated at times, because, like I said, like, it gets a bit meta, because dependencies, sometimes add dependencies, etc. So you need to be constantly scanning and reiterating through that. As an ecosystem, for example, in the JavaScript ecosystem, like I said on that other slide, more than 80% of vulnerability Snyk finds is due to indirect dependencies. And I have a prime example of that with my second demo today. So let's take a quick look at some demos. Again, if you have any questions, or you just want to put comments into the chat. Oh, hello from Trend Micro. Hello. Yes, this will be available after this. You'll get an email out after with the recording, and then, yeah, some extra information and stuff. Plus, I'm going to give you the code so you can actually try this yourself. So anyway, let's switch over to code things. I'm just going to change my screen over here. Whoops. There we go. So in the interest of time, I've already got this running. This is available on our GitHub. Hopefully you all can see that. This is available on our GitHub, so you can also play with this yourself. This is probably one of the few demos that we actually want these vulnerabilities to appear in GitHub. So the vulnerabilities are actually there as a training instance. So you can load this locally, you can run it on Docker. There's a few different ways, a whole bunch of instructions in there on how to get it up and running and get started. But this is the Goof to-do app. Let's make that a bit bigger. So basically it uses the marked library, which is there. I'm using a particular version in this instance. Well, the demo itself comes with a particular instance because the latest version fixes the problem that I'm about to show. So I'm using 0.3, 0.5. Anything below 0.3, 0.6 is not recommended. And literally because of a classic cross-site scripting issue, which I'm about to show you. And as a dev, like I've done this before to prove that an app wasn't secure, which we always do as part of research, of course. Anyway, on with the demo. So it's a basic app. It's using Mongo. It's got, like I said, it's got the marked library in there. You can see that on the side there. The actual library itself does there it's there, so it's calling it in, and then it tries to do some sanitization, which is cool because you should always sanitize user inputs. Can't stress that enough, and I've been caught with that one before too. So yes, please sanitize input, and as you can see here, the library itself does that or tries to do that. It's doing some basic regex stuff to try and identify particular character types. So yeah, you can put, I mean, you assume or hope that you actually should never assume, but you hope that the user is not wanting to do bad stuff, but it does basic markdown. So I can do like that, it makes it bold. You can also put in basic links, just a normal markdown, and then, well, if I hover over that, I see it's going to Snyk. And of course, if I put any other link in there, I'd be able to hover over it as a user and see what it's doing. But of course, it's a XSS issue that we're looking at here. So I can try and get around that and put in a little bit of a JavaScript alert because as a malicious user, I might want to do that. So, but this is where the sanitize part of this library is trying to clean that up, basically. Where did my mouse go? Oh, there it is. It's trying to clean that up. So as you can see here, like it's not actually gonna let me do that. We can try and get around that a little bit. Oops. Flick screens around. We can try and get around that a little bit by trying to add some URL encoded characters in. So same type of thing, but we're just adding URL encoding in because that may get around the regex, right? It almost kind of did, but didn't quite get there. We can try and, my mouse keeps disappearing. See, Fridays and demos, what can go wrong? We can try and get around that again by adding like because JavaScript. So we can add in some JavaScript elements maybe to try and get around that. Let's try that with, so this is the same thing again, just adding in, trying to inject in some basic JavaScript, but this time I've added this. This time I've added this, also meta. Yeah, which basically tries to get around that a little bit more by confusing or sort of trying to sidestep the actual JavaScript. So if we try that one now, oh, that one actually added it in. And hey, look, it's actually running the JavaScript this time. And yes, that is an alerting box. If you cannot read that text, that's what it says. Another pun. I've actually done this before in testing an app. Remember those 25 words or less Facebook apps back in the day? It was a while ago. But yeah, at digital agencies, like I built so many of those. And there was one in particular for a particular web online blog company. They launched one and I was like, hey, you're not sanitizing input. It was basically you enter some text or user would enter some text and it would output into the app, which as we all know, like straight away, I'm going, no, you need to sanitize that. Like can't stress that enough. And I thought, I wonder if they are. So I did exactly the same thing, did an alert box and then entered it. And yeah, an alert came up and I was like, hello, yeah, you might want to secure this. Like I contacted the evangelist there and I was like, hey, you're not sanitizing, please do that. Anyway, to prove it out, I actually did a JavaScript redirect, no different to that, to my website, which they then took it down, fixed it and redeployed again. So please sanitize inputs. Let's look at another example of this in the wild or something similar to this. So this is using a PHP framework called Kirby and using the PHP package manager composer. This is an example of what I was saying with, you may not always know what the direct dependencies that are being installed and whether they're safe or secure. So if I go to the vulnerability database on Snyk, you can see here Kirby. It's not advised to be using, or make sure you are aware what is running if you're using anything less than this version, so 3.5.4. So if I go to the Kirby website, the Kirby GitHub rather, well, this should be on their website as well. You can see 3.5.4 is the latest one, so should be safe, right? So to keep this short, I've already got stuff installed there. Let me just make that a bit bigger. So I've already got Kirby Composer installed, Kirby into this environment here. And if I look at Composer, it should be the latest version. It's the latest one straight from their GitHub. So it should be fairly safe. Now, if I run the Snyk test at command line, it's going off screen. If I run the command line for Snyk, let's do a quick test on that. And we can see here, there is actually one vulnerability found. And it's not the main framework itself, it's actually something it's installed, PHP mailer. So if I go and check that inside, well, actually I don't even need to, it's got the link right here. If I copy that out, I can have a look at that in the wild. And there we go there. So, and then it's actually saying like this issue is fixed in 6.4.1. So Kobe, like I wouldn't have known as a dev, I would have just installed this and started to set up whatever it is I was setting it up for. But this issue is actually fixed in a more recent version. Whether that works with Kobe, I mean, you can test for that, but this is where I'm saying like, be careful what you're installing because you don't know what else is coming in with it and whether it's safe or not. But yeah, this issue is actually relatively new. There you go, 28th of April, 2021. But yeah, you can see there, you can actually look it all up and yeah, check it all out. Anyway, going to switch back to Prezzo. Again, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat or reach out afterwards. There we go. That actually worked too. But yeah, this is where integrating Snyk, particularly with your deployments, or even before you deploy, like just to run a scan to see what you have got running, it comes in handy because it not only checks before you actually deploy, when you do deploy, but it ongoingly checks for upgrades and any issues you should be aware of as you go through. Yeah, totally should be continuously scanning. And again, run that due diligence to make sure you know what you're using, you know the risks involved, you know what it's going to be doing on your infrastructure, because we don't want to let in like anything that you don't want there. And that's basically what I wanted to say, sum it up, is like, make sure you know what you are installing and what dependencies are coming in with it. And in particularly working cloud native or working with even containerized infrastructure, like knowing what is running in the other environments in those containers on that infrastructure is just as important. Especially holistically scanning the entire SDLC, like you want to make sure that your environments are running safe and that your users are safe. Again, you're building apps and experiences for them to be able to, you know, make their lives seamless, to do that amazing thing, push that one button. But you want to make sure they're doing it in a safe way and it's not installing either anything on their devices or, you know, doing malicious things that you're not aware of. And I'm not going to go into containers too much today, but yeah, obviously the adoption on containerization is massive now. I am speaking about this at DockerCon India coming up soon. So if you're around that, please drop in to see that session, or again, just reach out. On Developer Steve kind of everywhere. But yeah, vulnerabilities in even base containers are something you totally need to be scanning for. Again, I'm not going to go on that too much today. We'll be here for hours. And I do love geeking out with this stuff. So just some quick takeaways is please always connect your container imagery. Skipped a slide, did I? Oh no, there we go. Connect your source code repositories to continuously scan them. Super, super critical. Pick up those dependencies, scan that code before deployment, after deployment, while you're updating. Always, always highly recommended. even just to know what you're installing and any issues, and even how the community has been able to fix that and how quickly they've been able to fix that. Always important too. And again, please get involved, help them. And then also, yeah, connecting base containers, always super critical as well, because you want to make sure the base infrastructure things are being deployed on okay, like they're going to be fine, and that there's no vulnerabilities or nasty things already installed in that base container, be them even just new containers as well. We have a really cool report out this week. The graphics are amazing and special effects even better. But yeah, please check that out. It's the State of Cloud Native Application Security. Link is on the screen, but we'll also include it in the follow-up email as well. DevSecCon 24 is coming. CFP, the call for papers, closes tomorrow. So if you have something amazing you want to share with the community, please submit. The link's on the bottom of that slide. If you need help submitting, if you're a first-time speaker or just need help submitting anyway, please, again, reach out. I'm more than happy to help you with the submission process. And I have an amazing present for you all. If you go to that link there, again, we'll include this in the follow-up email, but if you go to that link, you can get some stickers sent out to you too. So really easy form to submit. It's totally secure. We've already scanned it. And it's got SSL, always put SSL. But yeah, please check that out. Yeah, these stickers are just cool. So anyway, and just finally, I always love finishing my talk saying this, but you all know this anyway, is please use your developer superpowers for good and be excellent to each other. Oh, that also includes contributing back. And yeah, always stay safe in your cloud journey. There's people that are leaving messages, which is great. Let me see. Cricket Australia, I've enabled the scanning and docking containers. Can't it be treated similar to Sono Cloud? That is a good question. Wait, you've also asked another question. Oh, it's the same question. That is a great question. If you drop me a thing, we're almost out of time. So if you drop me a thing on LinkedIn or Twitter or somewhere, I'd be more than happy to chat about that. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining us today. Again, please reach out, submit those CFPs, get involved with open source, and scan your code.